Manufacturing jobs taking a hit under recent Democrat administrations.
Since January 2023 alone, under Joe Biden, the U.S. has lost 170,000 manufacturing jobs. And over the last 2 decades, America's manufacturing sector shed a staggering 2.4 million jobs.
While liberals try to blame the loss on corporate greed or price gouging, or as Kamala says it, gauging, our next guest says any elevated manufacturing profits seen today are primarily driven by inflation, not real growth.
Here to break it all down, Heritage Foundation public finance economist E.J. Antoni. E.J., what is this obsession that the Democrats have had about bragging about their manufacturing renaissance, when in fact manufacturing's been, in essence, a recession for the last 2 years and has lost 170,000 jobs since the beginning of 2023?
Well, Dagan, I think when you have nothing to run on, you sometimes have to run on a lie, and that seems to be what they've been doing. Unfortunately for the American people, for the American workers, though, those lies aren't going to pay the bills, especially with today's cost of living. And the truth of the matter is this: as you just laid out, manufacturing is in a recession, has been for quite some time. And frankly, the data that we've gotten, not only from official government sources like the Federal Reserve Board of Governors or the regional Federal Reserve banks, but also private data such as purchasing manager indexes, they all show exactly the same thing, which is that this administration's regulatory and tax policies have greatly contributed to crippling our manufacturing sector and industrial production.
So how much more damage can this administration do in the last 20 days? And what are the 2 or 3 most important things that Trump has to do to alleviate that damage?
Great question. Unfortunately, this administration really does seem hell-bent on doing as much damage as they go out the door as possible. I mean, look what they're doing with the border wall, for example. All of the pieces that were already purchased but haven't been assembled yet, they're auctioning them off as quick as they can for essentially pennies on the dollar, just so Trump can't finish his border wall with them. I mean, it's an absolute travesty. They clearly don't care about the country. All they care about is harming their political opponents. So with that in mind, I think the amount of harm that they can do, again, going out the door, is tremendous. Now, the only good news here is the fact that things that are done with executive order can almost always be undone with an executive order. And so the harm that the Biden administration is doing or trying to do unilaterally, I think much of that can be undone by the Trump administration, again, also unilaterally.
E.J., I want to talk about how Democrats debanked political opponents in shocking attacks on American freedoms. That I've had so many conversations about this just recently, that you wrote an in-depth piece on this very subject. But until Mark Andreessen went on Joe Rogan's podcast and said, I know 30 tech entrepreneurs who've been debanked in the last 4 years. His partner's father was debanked. Your credit cards get canceled. Nobody would ever believe a conservative that this was going on, that the government was basically removing people from our financial system by surrogate, because they're ordering these financial institutions to do this. No one would ever believe us until Mark Andreessen came out and said, it's happening, and they're actually doing it to crush startups in this country, too.
Dagan, you're absolutely right. And this is particularly scary because it is yet another example where people who tried sounding the alarm on these issues were essentially just painted as some kind of conspiracy kooks and were dismissed. But we've seen this repeatedly where they turn out to be correct. We were told the IRS is not targeting political opponents of the Obama administration, for example. Oh, and then we found out actually they were. They conducted Operation Choke Point in the first Obama administration. administration, where, again, they coerced financial firms to go after individuals by debanking them. We're seeing exactly the same thing today, but in particular, as you said, Dagan, they're going after startups. They're also going after crypto firms. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that not just the Biden administration, but Democrats today more broadly have been at war with crypto because they're trying to wash off the stink of the FTX scandal, as our incoming Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has pointed out. Let's not forget that Sam Bankman-Fried gave a lot of money to Democrat politicians.
So, somebody who could have predicted something like this happening would, of course, be the founders, which is why they established the Bill of Rights and established every sort of protection they could come up with. But they couldn't quite imagine this far down, this degree of evil. Is it something that can be done at the executive branch level, or do you have to do something at a congressional level to stop this from happening to people?
Well, I think Congress needs to play a role in that. They need to claw back their authority. And some of that is already happening now that Chevron has been overturned. That was the Supreme Court decision, right, where essentially we're going to be able to claw back a lot of the regulatory authority that was granted to these different 3- and 4-letter agencies of government where they have no constitutional right to that power and to those actions. That really is the problem here. You have the FDIC, you have the SEC conducting all of these coercions on financial firms that they have no business doing.
And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau looked no further than EWASI herself. EJ Antoni, thank you so much. Great to see you.